Well, hello, thank you very much for being here. We very much appreciate your time and attention. I'm Vanessa Cornova, Director of the Great Cities Institute. And we're really delighted that we have with us here folks to talk to you about rehabilitating older houses. This is part of an ongoing partnership that we have with the Chicago Workers Cottage Initiative. We're very excited about this partnership, and what I'd like to do now is introduce its president, who will introduce our guest speakers. So Samantha Kearney, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha Kearney, and I am the president of the Chicago Workers Cottage Initiative. And I'm delighted to help GCI spotlight institutions in Chicago that provide affordable housing solutions. So you might be wondering what the Chicago Workers Cottage Initiative does. We are an institution that's all volunteer run, and we work to promote and study workers' cottages throughout the Chicago area. Workers' cottages are a form of naturally occurring affordable housing, and to better understand and appreciate them, because currently they are the subject of many tear downs and unit deconversions. So it is my pleasure to introduce the Chicago Bungalow Association. They help people in bungalows, but they also help people in many other housing styles, including workers' cottages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Lia. I'm the Home Energy Savings Program Manager.
And I'm Carla. I'm the Preservation and Resiliency Specialist at Chicago Bungalow Association. Yeah, sure. Hi, thanks for coming today. I know it's cold. So, we appreciate you coming out. We just want to talk about the programs that we offer our members, a little bit about what we do and who we are. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to restore your home or do energy efficiency, down to a sort of step-by-step level or anything like that. But we want to let you know more about us and how to find out how to do those things. Forgive my voice, I sound like I'm going through puberty right now, so I'm getting over a virus, but I assure you I'm well past it. All about to do this work. So just a little bit about our organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit and a delegate agency to the city of Chicago. We came around in 2000, the year 2000. Well, we equip homeowners with energy efficiency programs. It's a big part of what we do, and educational resources to maintain, preserve, and adapt their Chicago bungalows and other vintage homes. We are the Chicago Bungalow Association. We used to be the historic Chicago Bungalow Association, but we've changed to be more expansive over the years. We lopped off the historic part of it just because some of our members didn't identify as having historic homes, and we didn't want them to feel left out, even though we work only with vintage homes that are 50 years older or older. We have moved beyond bungalows as well to service people who, again, any sort of vintage home at this point, including the lovely workers' cottages that were just mentioned by Samantha. So we have to date helped administer over $50 million in energy efficiency programs around the city since 2000. We're in our 25-year anniversary, so we have a lot to celebrate. Pretty excited about that. And also, just a little bit, we started, also to Samantha's point, we started in 2000. It actually came out of a thesis that an alderman had written at the time. And the mayor got a hold of it, and it was all about Chicago bungalows and how they're so great and how everybody was tearing them down. So what seems to happen over time with particular historic home types, they'll sort of go in and out of fashion, right? So everybody was tearing these things down at the time. Everybody loves them now. They think they're all great and sexy and wonderful and this like iconic housing type of the city. But that wasn't always so. So we lost a lot of them. That said, we still have around 80,000 of them in the city. They are the third largest single family housing type that we have here. Third most common single family housing types, or a third of our single family housing in the city, and really critical to our sort of social infrastructure here as well. We are a member-based organization. everything we do is for our members. We have to date around 30,000 members. Membership is free, or we would be very wealthy. Again, these are for older homes that were built at least 50 years ago. They have to be located in the city. We have done some sort of facilitation around programs in the suburbs for energy efficiency stuff in the past, but really we're a city-centered organization. It has to be a single-family residence, and it has to be owner-occupied. What are the benefits? Why do you want to be involved with the Chicago Bungalow Association? So a big one is that it allows you to be eligible for the programs that we're running, right? So our main program is our home energy savings program. It offers a free home energy assessment with the potential to include weatherization services based on eligibility. Lia is going to talk a lot more about what that looks like. We have a ton of free educational seminars and workshops that we do. We used to do these in the libraries over the years. We always do a north side and a south side, same topic whenever we do things in person, just to make sure we're covering our membership, which spans the entire city. The Bungalow Belt, as it's called, runs around pretty much like the western, you could say the western edge of the entire city, from furthest points north to the furthest points south. But you've all seen bungalows outside of this little belt too. They're just kind of everywhere, right? They built them along those tracks because all of that area was not yet built on in the 1910s and 20s when bungalows were being built. It was extremely cheap land. Literally, some houses were on posts at the time. It was swampy, it was difficult, it was mucky. And these were the first permanent housing, the first permanent housing that was built at the time. So they were built in large quantity on cheap land, and that's why they're sort of around the western edge primarily. But again, you'll see them everywhere. We have a lot of members who call us saying like, hey, can you recommend an architect? Can you recommend someone to help me with my basement flooding? I think I might have radon issues, like whatever their current issues are. So we have a list of recommended contractors as well. These are not people we have all personally worked with, but they're people who our members have recommended. And I think the criteria is something like 3 people have to recommend them for them to come on our list. Also, we'll sort of make sure there's no strikes against them on the Better Business Bureau or something like that. And then sometimes people will be like, you know what, I used that contractor and they were terrible, and we will take them off. So it's kind of a thing we just keep going just to help our members out. It's a really nice resource to just be able to click to and get a few different quotes. We also do that thing where, a lot of contractors won't service the south side of our city, and we don't want to waste our members' time. We have a ton of members on the south side. So we have the ability to click north or south side, or who services the whole city, etc. So we try to pay attention to things like that as well. So current list of available programs citywide. We are a staff of 7. So again, we have 30,000 members. So we can't run all the programs or keep up with everything, but we really try to be able to point people, anyone who calls us and is like, I really need help with my front steps. I really need help with, A, B, or C. We might not have a program, but we might know of a program. So I try to really keep track as much as possible with programs, other programs that are city run or other organizations have going on, different grants, different loan programs, stuff like that. So that's also something you can find on our website and kind of help people navigate just to get from point A to point B and ask more questions. Yeah, we do fun stuff like help with design inspiration. People are always looking for, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Just for fun projects around the house. It's not all about home maintenance, but a lot of it does go to that. We have awards programs, and we have a newsletter as well that we will not spam you with. You'll get one every couple of months or something like that. Just sort of things that are going on that we know about, blog posts, etc. So this is our membership and our home energy savings participants. There's a lot of them. Every dot is a home, and there's so many that they're sort of coagulating on the screen right now. But just to give you a sense, you also kind of get a sense of what I mean by the bungalow belt. To connect that middle point a little bit more, it does kind of run like a kidney shape around the city. Yeah, and I'll let Lia talk more about this particular program for y'all.
So yeah, like Carla said, the main program that we offer is the Home Energy Savings Program. It's in partnership with ComEd and the utilities. And basically, if eligible, which eligibility is defined as earning less than 80% of the area median income, you would receive a free in-home energy assessment. And that's where a program partner comes out to the home, they do a walkthrough assessment and determine what free energy saving products and then potential weatherization services the home could qualify for. During the initial assessment, they take a look at the attic and the basement for potential air sealing opportunities. They'll take a look at any accessible ductwork for duct sealing opportunities. And then lastly, they look at the HVAC equipment, so the furnace or boiler. They'll see how those systems are running and look at the ages. And those are kind of the 4 criteria under the program guidelines that make the home eligible for what's called a retrofit, which I'll get into in the next slide. But at the initial assessment, you get like a written report of the findings from the assessment, kind of ways to save energy in the home or where most energy is being used in the home. And then potential installation of free energy saving products. This could include thermostats, shower heads, faucet aerators, new LED light bulbs, things like that that can help save energy in the home and hopefully lower the utility bills. And then next steps in the program, if the home qualifies for the further weatherization services that I mentioned, our contracting partner then would come out to the home and do a more comprehensive weatherization assessment. They do what's called an air blower door test where they seal off the home and blow air through it to see where it might be leaking or getting out. And then they drill some test holes in the walls to see if there's any existing insulation. And then more like diagnostic testing on the HVAC equipment. Total scope of work though, or the typical scope of work if the home qualifies for the weatherization measures includes air sealing in the attic, attic insulation, wall, basement, or sidewall insulation. Every home's different, so it kind of varies and depends what our contractors determine. And then more energy saving products and potentially health and safety measures depending on what's needed. Yeah. And then all the benefits of both the initial energy assessment and the full retrofit. We see lower utility bills, so saving energy and decreasing the utility bills is huge for the homeowners. Improved health and safety for the homeowners, like I mentioned. Oh, I forgot to say, they also install a ventilation fan in the bathroom with the retrofit, which helps with ventilation throughout the whole home. So improved air quality, improved ventilation. Sometimes our contractors can address like mold and moisture remediation or the removal of toxic materials, depending again on what's needed at the specific home. But all of the retrofit and weatherization measures really improves the resiliency and the value of the home for the homeowner. And we really want to focus on keeping homeowners in their homes and keeping them healthy and safe, but also lowering utility bills and making it more affordable to live in their homes. So our recipients of the grant have significant dollar savings have been reported. So 50% on average are saving on their gas bill, 30% on average are saving on their electricity bills. And obviously, so these are the little asterisk down at the bottom is that prior to 2022 and 23 gas prices, these stats are before that, but gas prices continue to increase, which is why energy efficiency programs like this are so important for homeowners as we move forward. And again, to bring home the importance of energy efficiency, lower utility bills eases the energy insecurity of homeowners. So lower income families in Chicago on average spend around 15 to 20% of their income on energy costs, and a household is considered energy burdened when energy costs exceed 6%. So really anything we can do to help homeowners lower their utility bills is really important. And then here's a map of where we serve. This data is a little dated, but 2018 to 2022, around 6,000 households in the Chicago area have been retrofit. And that translates to about $40.7 million invested in Chicago neighborhoods. The average home, if they receive the full retrofit work, it's around $9,740. To bring this data like current, I would say there's probably, you could add another like 2,000 households that have been retrofitted since 2022. So And then here's some of the eligibility guidelines, which we may have touched on, but it's really open to all different housing types. You don't have to be a Chicago bungalow, single family, 2 flats. It is now open to condos, mobile homes, manufactured homes, or townhomes. The eligibility for the full retrofit kind of is limited on some of the later housing types there, but CBA really focuses on the single family and 2 flats. That's kind of the bulk of where we've retrofitted in Chicago. But it's open to owners or renters. You just have to get owner consent. Located in ComEd service territory, really, that's the big one. As long as you have a ComEd utility account number and you're under the income requirement, you would receive the free energy assessment and potentially be eligible for further services. And then another big thing we try to do at CBA is make it as easy as possible for homeowners to apply. So this is a free program. It's not a loan, but we make it as simple as possible and really try to walk the homeowner through every step of the process. Since weatherization and insulation work can be so invasive, we really want to try to explain every stage, help them through it all. We don't require any other type of income documents, forms of ID, deeds, credit checks. Really, the only barrier to applying or the only barrier to participate is filling out the application, which again, we do over the phone with homeowners. It's available on our website and we mail paper copies as well. So I'll give it over to Carla.
And one note I wanted to make, because I know Leah mentioned 2 flats, and I was like, we're all single family homes. For this particular program, we were able to move into 2 flats to do the work, which was really exciting. I would also argue that a 2 flat is just 2 bungalows stacked on top of each other in terms of layout and materials. So works out pretty well. But that is sort of an exception that we have with 2 flats in that case, which again, we're really happy about. So we're doing some other stuff right now, specifically in the Inglewood neighborhood. Deferred home repair and maintenance has been a barrier to a lot of our energy efficiency programming, I would argue probably anybody's energy efficiency programming. This sort of folds into this project. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But we're working with the social justice artist, Tanika Lewis-Johnson, which some of you may have heard of. If you don't know about her folded mat project, please Google that immediately because it will inspire the pants off of you. She's also doing another project called Inequity for Sale, and the project we're working on with Tanika comes out of that project actually. Our project is called Unblocked, and it's building on Inequity for Sale, which was bringing attention to land sale contracts that happened around the city. We had this amazing researcher, Amber Henley, who we also work with, who wrote a paper called The Plunder of Black Wealth with Duke University a few years back. And Tanika saw it and was super inspired by it. It just talks about all of the barriers to homeownership that Black communities faced over from the 30s through 70s and early today. And it's a brilliant paper that you can easily Google as well. So that was kind of the start of this program. It was the start of Inequity for Sale. Once they found and located a lot of these homes that had been sold under land sale contracts, Tanika started fabricating these really heavy markers and sticking them in front of these largely abandoned homes around the city, or homes that really had been, whose owners really just weren't paying much attention to them. Definitely pissed some people off. Some tried to move these very heavy markers. A couple succeeded. But it was really important to just draw attention. And she also, as a lifelong resident of Inglewood, who also lives in a bungalow, she was upset that these, that these homeowners were not paying attention to their properties as well, and kind of wanted to call that out, I think, a little bit too. You can find 800 news stories that she's been featured in talking about that if you're curious as well. But what she decided ultimately to do in conjunction, so there was a grant that came up with DCASE, and it was a community-based grant, and she had this idea of focusing on a single block and wanted to use the land markers as a way to sort of figure out what block to choose. And for numerous reasons, this one block in particular came up and was really, really important for a lot of intersecting reasons in terms of people who live there. There's a family who had actually completed their land sale contract, which was no small feat. And they happened to be the grandparents of a friend that Tanika grew up with, who also worked with the alderman. So it was like this really wonderful confluence of things. And so we chose this block on South Aberdeen, and it has been just the most amazing experience for all of us. Our role is, as we are not artists per se, we are in charge of repairs and weatherization work. So we're leveraging funding through our programming and working, to sort of facilitate that side of things. We've done 14 units so far. I think we've got at least 7 more we're going to be able to do. We have a lot more grant funding than what's listed on here now, thankfully. And one of the really great things that came out of this for everybody was Tanika is, she's an artist, but she's extremely aware of, again, inequities and the fact that we need more repair funds in the city to get anything done. So everybody wants to weatherize, everybody wants to work with lower income homeowners, and that's great. But if you don't have repair funds and there's holes in the roof, you can't do that weatherization work. And it's this gap that's been really just a huge frustration. Usually when a property is deferred, it's because of that, because too much work needs to be done to the home. And it's like, well, what do you expect if you want to people, who are struggling to maintain their homes? So there's this wonderful Tribune article, one of the first pieces of press that came out of Unblocked, where Tanika's just basically like, why isn't repair art? Art is repair. And it was like, yes, like we were all just like, yeah, it's repair, it's really inspiring, wonderful way to collaborate on this project. So we've been working on this for a couple of years now, and we've got some more years to go on it, thankfully. We've always struggled in Inglewood as compared to other neighborhoods because of so much deferred maintenance that has happened in the neighborhood. So we've had deferral rates that have been frustrating. But on this one particular block, it's been wonderful. In general, now we've got about $2 million we've put into Inglewood, possibly more, depending on when that last stat was brought up. But we're working on it, and we're working as much as we can on trying to figure out how to get more repair funding. Other available programs, as I mentioned, we're a small but mighty, I would say, organization. But we get so many calls from homeowners. We know, like, our members are not quiet. They will call us about everything. They tell us what we're doing right, they tell us what we're doing wrong, they tell everything, and we listen to all of it. And so we really try to keep up with what other programs are going on in the city. We know what the problems are: front steps, porches, roofs. Like, these are huge problems, especially for seniors. So if you go to chicagobungalow.org and look at programs, we try to stay up on those as much as possible. If the funding's closed or they run out, we try to indicate that as well. We should have an image of it on here maybe, but we just sort of list everything out, and then there's a link directly on that particular program that will shoot you over to the website that you need to be at in order to find out more information. So we try to make it user friendly. Webinars. So we started doing webinars during lockdown. We've been doing seminars forever. And as I mentioned, we always used to do them in libraries. We're actually going to be doing some in libraries this summer as well, again. But people really like the webinars. It's great for us. As somebody who has done these in libraries for so many years, they never really end, regardless of when the library closes, because people will follow you to your car. We follow your car even when it's leaving sometimes. Show you all kinds of pictures on their phone that are really hard to decipher. So it's kind of nice to have the format of the webinar also, because I'm joking, but because you can save it and you can watch it whenever you like as well, of course. And we always do Q&A at the end and all of that in the same format. But our webinars, we also for seniors, it's kind of nice they don't have to leave their house. So assuming, we have it on, we run them on Facebook, we have them on our website, them on YouTube. So we try to find different formats. And anybody who signs up, we also send an email out to afterwards with a link to it and other information if anything came up, you know. So as much as we can be accessible, we are. And also, you know, again, you have a lot of the same problems that come up with homeowners over and over again with older homeowners, vintage homeowners. And that's great. And so we do run repeats of things with different speakers and over time and stuff like that, even though we haven't recorded, just for more nuance and because people want more and, you know, sort of fresh hearings of things. But also problems change, like issues change, and we listen to those too. We sort of have like waves where like one thing will be, you know, everybody's calling about it or whatever. And, you know, Angela and I sit down and sort of figure out, okay, what are we hearing the most of and what do we need to prioritize and try and find speakers for. If you know of great speakers on various topics, feel free to let us know as well. We have many of them, but sometimes there's a gap. Contractors are wonderful and can be great speakers, but also a lot of contractors are contractors because they don't want to talk to a lot of people. And so they're sort of like the lone wolves, you know, who kind of want to do their thing and do it brilliantly, but maybe they're not like out for a webinar, you know. So we're always looking for good speakers too. If you guys have suggestions, we'd love to hear them. But yeah, basement flooding, for example, it's like, you know, hugely common. Everybody wants to hear about basement flooding and different ways to deal with that. We have certain things that are geared specifically to seniors, in terms of like how to have your house, the property taxes evaluated and, you know, take advantage of various tax breaks and stuff that seniors might be eligible for. I mean, you name it. We also have fun with like how to restore your wooden floors and windows, or, you know, how to plant natives in your garden and whatever. We really run the gamut in terms of interest, income level, all of it with our members. So we try to have something for everybody. We also have the Treehouse Awards every year. This is a really popular, pretty intense competition among homeowners. There's 7 different categories, from, you know, sort of environmentally friendly rehabs to exterior stuff, to interior stuff, to planter boxes, like you name it. We have all kinds of different categories. Creativity is a big factor in that as well. So it's not just the person who has $1 million to spend on a, you know, 2nd story bedroom with a spa, you know, winning every year. So we take a lot of things into consideration for these, and it's really, really fun. We have an award ceremony at the end of them, and celebrate everybody, and it feels really good. There's a cash award as well, but it's just great to have people together talking about their projects. Another really wonderful thing about, you know, again, we're not just bungalows, but for many years, and I think this is surely true of the workers' cottages as well, having a single housing type can be really advantageous to try and solve problems. So everybody has the same problems. Like you're in a Chicago bungalow, you have a double wide brick wall, you have, you know, a particular kind of roof, you have a concrete basement, you have, I mean, it's the same, you know, and so everybody has the same problems, pretty much. And having this hive mind that springs up, we also have a Facebook page for our members, not just for our members, anybody can join it, for just recommendations, or like, hey, somebody tore out these really great, you know, craftsman style doors and they're in the alley behind the house, or, you know, I had this really great experience with somebody pouring my front steps and I highly recommend, you know, like all these different sort of conversations that happen. I know not everybody's on Facebook, but a lot of our members are on Facebook, and it's been a nice little forum. We've taken stuff off of there ourselves. We try to kind of not, you know, look, like we try to let it just be its own thing. Occasionally we have to moderate because things get a little heated about pop tops, but it's but we really try to let it be a thing just for our members. And it's really a wonderful forum. But in general, we've learned a lot, and it's been really helpful to be able to sort of see these repeated issues and be more efficient as a result. I would also say that most vintage homes, sort of, you know, up to Second World War, were really built pretty much the same way. So there's some variation, but you have a lot of the same problems. So that does extend. Older building materials are just very different than newer building materials. So you still see a lot of the same problems, even if it isn't just a bungalow or workers cottage. So, so there's that too. But it's allowed us, I think, to get more done and be really efficient about it, frankly. Oh, we also have a garden contest that we started more recently. I don't know, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. Time is so elusive with COVID, the COVID era. But this is also quite cutthroat. People are really into it. They love their gardens. It was really fun also during lockdown. Just people were just so bonkers about their homes because you're all stuck there. But it's been really, really fun. Not again, so creative. Really spanning all kinds of income levels and ideas. Some people are like, I've never paid for a plant. I've been pulling them out of alleys, for like forever. And it's like incredible landscape. And other people, are like, my husband's a carpenter and we built 3 gazebos and a koi pond and a whatever. And we're like, great, bring it, everybody, can kind of participate that way. But it's also really, really fun. So if you guys are into any of that stuff, by all means, check out our website under our contests. And yeah, that is about all we have, but we're very, very happy to take questions from any of you guys. Thanks.
My name is Cedric with a partner intern with the York City Co-op Partner Home. All of this was great, but my primary question is with your guys' main focus on vintage homes and sort of, those singular and double bungalows. Do you guys have any plans in the near future, or would you be open to working with sort of modular or prefabricated homes?
Given that there's 7 of us, as I mentioned, I'm not sure. We're always interested in learning about stuff, of course. Things like ADUs, coming up and like things like that, where, we want to try and keep our finger on the pulse of and be aware of. I think that it is a really different animal, and doing something well or something to sort of be said for knowing your subject matter in that regard. And there's so much need and focus on repair in our work that I don't know that we're going to be able to expand quite that much, but that doesn't mean that there's not a huge need for that and that there's not potential for partnership and stuff like that around it. We like saving the existing affordable housing, affordable in some cases, but existing housing that we have, middle housing in the city, that's sort of ever expandable, and all of that. But yeah, I think it would probably be more, if anything, a partnership situation than us trying to assume we could take something like that.
And maybe also kind of a sharing of knowledge or lessons learned as you developed your bungalow association. What are the kinds of things that would be useful as someone else trying to develop another kind of association?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked to people about replication plenty of times over the years, of course. Yeah.
What's the major difference between a bungalow and a worker's cottage? Is there a huge difference or?
Yeah, a bungalow is like a really, I don't know what the number is on workers' cottages in terms of how many, I think there are, like I said, so bungalows were built 1910s and 20s. That's it. Like, then they were done. Depression comes and, maybe you'll have a couple in the early 30s. But it's a really specific style of house. It's 1.5 stories. It's got to be brick if it's a Chicago style bungalow. Gotta have a concrete basement. Particular roof type, lower slung roof, all that. So, and it functions a little bit differently, although there's commonalities, I think, with workers' cottages too. Workers' cottages are, a little bit more, I guess, of a simple form in ways, with a higher peak at roof. As Samantha and I were talking about earlier too, you'll have like 1-story, 2-story, 3-story workers' cottages. Often they would lift up workers' cottages and build under them to add stories. It's just kind of a little bit of a different animal. They can be multi-unit as well, correct? Yeah, of course. Whereas you don't really see that so much with bungalows. I mean, you can technically make it a multi-unit, but although it might be illegal. But I mean, historically, you know, you've got Michelle Obama who grew up in her, you know, her aunt and uncle's bungalow with her parents in their attic. Like that was a very common kind of thing. And if you look in old census data, you'll see a lot of that as well. But yeah, a bit different. If I had a good slideshow for you, I wish I did.
Thank you.
It's sort of-
She's- I'm on the hunt to get a visual
Yeah.
idea to see if I can
Well, I
find.
have a book coming out in October that's illustrated with Wonder City Studio, where we actually break all that down. It's kind of a style guide, but Phil's illustrations are wonderful. So that might help too.
Yeah, our website actually also has it breaks down the different housing styles in Chicago, so that's a good resource.
And we left some flyers out front about workers' cottages and can help you visualize.
Like this.
Yeah. So that'll show you what workers' cottage.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great stuff on your website too, in terms of breaking down different areas and stuff like that.
Another question?
Yes, the kind of format. That's like, I know what's it called, the nonprofit organization called Revolution Workshop. Are they located in Inglewood as well? It's like,
No, I think that they are in,
I know they have
not
two.
Pullman, they're in, what's next to Pullman, Roseland.
Oh,
I
okay.
think they have a newer location, and then Garfield Park. They're still in Garfield Park as well. Do you know they're still in Garfield Park? They were in Garfield Park. They might still be in Garfield Park, and they just have a newer location as well, far south.
Yeah, it's like, I just wanted to like, just a hypothetical, what is like, cause I know they teach a lot of the residents who live in that neighborhood how to do like home repairs and whatnot. So it's like, it's just like, do you see like a potential partnership with them in the future, or is it?
Possibly. Again, we're open to whatever kind of comes up. We try, and through our programming, we show a lot of stuff around like, okay, this is what this particular kind of work, you know, restoration or repair would entail. If you want to know more, you know, we've talked in the past about, oh, what if we had a satellite bungalow or house, we could, you know, do stuff like that. And it's just a matter of finding one and having the right staff and resources for it, but definitely not opposed to it. Everybody loves hands-on stuff in terms of learning. So yeah, it's just a matter of, you know, do things like that make more sense as partnership, or, you know, something we would take on, but yeah, I know that they've done.
And then you just mentioned that like a lot of the material was brick, right?
Yeah. for
How
bungalows,
expensive
yeah.
can those repairs get, like cause I know, I live in kind of like the North London area, and I see a lot of gray stones.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of them are kind of on the pricier side because of the repairs. as
Yeah,
well.
repairs are expensive. That's the thing. And sometimes it's a matter of like, for example, like repointing your house, right? If it is a brick house, you know, you don't have to repoint the whole thing. Like it's stuff like that people don't, you know, like you think you have to do everything all at once. And so it's that kind of education that you're like, okay, where do you actually need to do this work? What can you phase, you know, like, you know, how do you prioritize the work you need done on your house? To try and save money and time and resources. And of course, it's just getting trickier because materials have gone way up. So yeah, there's a lot to it. Gray stones, of course, also need a lot of TLC. Those are brick actually all around as well, but they just have the gray stone on the front, stuck on more brick, but yeah, I know, it's a lot. There used to be the historic Chicago Greystone Initiative as well. You can still find, they have some guides online that can help sort of walk you through some of the ways to prioritize stuff like that as well. It was through Neighborhood Housing Services. But it's not, doesn't exist anymore, but their resources still do.
This is a different kind of question. You kind of did a cheerleading kind of motion when you mentioned single family homes. And all these bungalows are single family homes, and they were built in neighborhoods comprised of single family homes. And so I'm assuming that part of why you engaged in that motion is because of you're seeing all these reasons why these single family homes are make the neighborhood special, are great for the homeowners, or whatever other reasons. There's currently a move among some younger folks around opposing construction and development of single family homes. And so, I don't hear a lot in that conversation about the value of single family homes and neighborhoods of single family homes. So I'm just wondering if there's anything you would like to elaborate on with respect to why preserving single family homes is an important thing to do in an urban area like Chicago, or should just tear them all down and build multifamily units on there.
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know what gesture I did.
This.
Cecilia, I don't know, I just moved my hands, but, yeah, single family homes. So, I've done, with other work I've done, we've looked at density and affordability in terms of, I know everybody, there's this idea that the more density, the more affordable housing there's going to be. That's not necessarily true. Often with older buildings in general, you have a higher concentration of people and less square footage. Newer construction tends to be much more expensive. Pretty much anytime you tear down an existing building on a lot, whatever is going to be built on top of that is going to be more expensive. New construction is just more expensive. So, and often because, so again, they were building, bungalows. We are more than bungalows, but just because it's such an easy thing to point to, 1910s and 20s. Since just the 1950s or 60s, we have twice as much square footage per person with our buildings. So we think we need a lot more space now than we used to. So part of it is like, what you call I think someone brought up naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAA. You're tearing down these older buildings, and what you're building there is just not cheaper. It's not that simple of an equation, unfortunately. And when you get into much larger density buildings, a lot of times the people who own these units aren't there. They're not even living there. They're investment properties. They're in Russia and China a lot of the time. The West Loop is full of that. Like, there's a lot of examples we can point to. So it's not that density is inherently a bad thing, it's just that you have to kind of look a little bit closer to see how many people are actually living here, like what's really going on here and what does it cost to live here? So what's that?
And who's displaced?
And who is displaced, exactly. So, in that regard, we just feel like we need to preserve our middle housing as much as we can. Bungalows were always built to be expandable. So they were built from the beginning, en masse, so they were cheaper in that regard. The attics were never finished, basements were never finished. The idea was like, when you get money, maybe you can do that at some point, right? And people do, and expand, and having that sort of flexibility, I think, is really important. They're also incredibly well built. You could never afford to build vintage homes the way that they used to be built. Like, there's just no way. So, in that regard, when you're thinking about how long are these places going to last, what kind of maintenance, do you need to do? And that's why we're trying to figure out, like, how do we get word out about how to do maintenance properly, how to do it affordably, all of that. But you can maintain those buildings. A brick house in Chicago is going to last hundreds and hundreds more years. No problem. Go to Rome. It's like, it's just brick, brick and mortar. So, whereas newer construction, it's not as easily repairable. Quality is often not there as well. So you're just paying for something that looks shiny for 6 or 7 years before it doesn't. And it tends to be a lot more. So.
Great, that's interesting. How about just the values of single family homes?
I see, I'm not sure.
Well, or single family, neighborhoods with single family homes. Because you've got clusters of these homes. So they're not isolated. You actually have, so they comprise neighborhoods.
Right. It's hard to talk about that in part because in Chicago, of course, north side versus south side values of the same house are gonna be quite different.
I don't mean value money wise, I mean value,
Uh,
in terms of,
sort of community and, yeah, I mean, you know, they were originally built older homes, you know, they all have the same setbacks. There's this idea of this sort of like continuity and rhythm and neighborliness, so you can see down the street, you know, what people are doing, not to be too like Pollyanna about it, but there is something to be said for this cohesion. I mean, we have 15 bungalow historic districts in the city, and, you know, they're really largely honorary designations, but the reason that they're important, in part, I mean, there are some protections that affords, but a lot of it is just people get really excited about it, and they want to know more about their neighborhood. They want to know more about, I mean, it's what a lot of our programming is. It's just trying to get people like, hey, you live in this really awesome historic house, whatever it is, and, you know, here are the reasons why it's awesome. And here are all of these things that people with a house like yours are doing on their property and how they're working together. And so it's, you know, a matter of trying to sort of create community around that kind of thing to increase that sort of, I mean, there's just a lot of value in that regard, we think. In terms of actual monetary value, because you're sharing resources, but, you know, just in terms of like sort of pride of place and, yeah, community building. So, yeah.
Is there a specialty, a person, a career that prioritizes the needs of these older buildings, that a person who can help you prioritize what needs to be fixed?
Well, there's a couple of things. There's historic preservation, which actually taught a couple classes at UAC, just like one-offs. Around that, there used to be a little bit more through architecture department here. Art Institute has a program like that as well where I teach. So historic preservation, it's trying to save buildings from being torn down. But also there's a lot we have to learn about in terms of materiality and how systems work and stuff like that. So you can go a lot of directions with it. This is the direction I went with it. But other than that, I mean, in terms of repair, you know, there's, what is that repair organization called? There's this this national repair organization that's doing really cool work that's newer. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. But there's an understanding that we need more resources and information in this realm in general. A lot of nonprofits, though, will, you know, sort of can show you, you know, like we'll have programming around how to maintain your home and how to do things like that as well, in housing. So Chicago certainly has a lot of programming like that, but those are the things that come to mind. Yeah.
any more comments or
Sorry.
questions?
Somebody asked Lia a question.
I have a question for you, Leah.
Yeah.
How much, are you doing any electrification of these homes?
That actually is a common question.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We are, Carla's kind of the lead on that.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of it. We've done some pilot stuff with Elevate.
Mhm.
Not huge numbers on that, but yeah, we've done probably around 30 homes maybe at this point. They're not numbers like Lia gets, which are like in the thousands. So it's, you know, but it's a much more expensive proposition, obviously. You know, we were just at the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance conference a couple of weeks ago. And it's interesting what's going on around electrification now. They're looking at possibly going more hybrid models, and we all thought we were getting, the gas was on the out. But apparently with things like AI and just our energy consumption since 2022 has skyrocketed. So, you know, in order to kind of keep everything working, we're probably going to have to stay with our fossil fuels a little bit longer as well, and do some hybridization work around that. I don't know about bungalow specifically, but just in general, that was a theme that came through. But yeah, we've done some. And
So, me back to answer this question around density. I know that there's so many people converting to flats to single family homes now, and they're super expensive and.
That was not a celebration, that was.
But-
Yeah. I'm trying to clarify my movements, right, yeah.
I wonder if there's any efforts to like reflect with those people to be like, hey, buy a bungalow or maybe a single family home.
Yeah, I don't know about those people. It's a hard, it's a little out of our scope that way. We all are really hopeful. I mean, you're losing, you're cutting density in half when you do that, obviously. So we haven't been directly involved in any campaigns or anything like that, but we all hope that people will appreciate the importance of keeping units separate that way for sure. And we hope that ADU stuff moves along and isn't so cost prohibitive in the future as well, to help people pay things off in a reasonable way. It's right now, it's just really, there's so many barriers to it, even though we're trying to sort of expand that way. But a lot of cities, in terms of ADUs, I think that there might be some that have ordinances too that prevent that deconversion, the conversion. So I can't think of where right now, but other places are doing it. Hopefully Chicago's just always so tricky with building stuff.
So
So, yeah.
what is the status of the ADUs? Because I knew they had a pilot program, it felt intended, and then it was going before the city council, but there is no ordinance yet. Does
Yeah,
anybody know? Where the
there were like
state of the
5
ADUs are?
pockets.
Yeah, so, with our co-op, we're actually working on piloting a program for ADUs, especially in preserving sort of, communities and neighborhoods. We want it to be people first and people oriented, and sort of take away, likewise with CBA's mission, that sort of, interference that comes from people, corporations that may just own these units, right? So just yesterday, we had a meeting with the alderwoman, the 49th ward, and we pretty much gave our proposal to her for a project that we're working on called Urban Uplift. And the idea there is sort of, going back to my earlier question, is to instill and install these sort of modular and prefabricated homes, not only sort of increasing that community value, but giving ownership to people that may already live in that community, in the neighborhood. The biggest issue right now, especially with talking to the alderwoman, was that it's a lot of passing and a lot of trials and tribulation that goes through avenues that, on paper, it sounds bright and it sounds good, but at the end of the day, there are businesses and obviously the financial aspect of it. Community and a lot of people in elected positions are always going to be on board with it, especially if it helps the community first. But right now, I think the biggest issue that they're tackling, especially within Chicago, is just finding the financial backing and stability and security.
Yeah, and cut through all the red tape.
Yeah,
I was at an AIA conference last year, and it was a focus of the talks, and there were examples, but it was so expensive to make an ADU comply. It was really cost prohibitive. So we've got a lot of work to do, I know, around that.
So when you talk about working with ADUs, do you mean helping bungalow owners build ADUs on their properties? Supposing that they're allowed.
Well, there's different, sorry, if I interrupted you
No,
too soon.
that was it.
So ADUs can also be integrated into the home. So it can be a unit in your home that you rent out, like an Airbnb kind of thing, but like longer term rental, So probably that would be a little bit more our jam, but and we're not doing anything really actively around it right now. It's just something that we're aware of and, would like to, if it is something that makes sense and is going to be really value added and, you don't have to spend $1 million to build one. But also, most of, we have yards in Chicago since we're dealing with single family homes. And so there is opportunity for garages to be converted or other things like that. It's a hugely important part of other cities that allow people to pay their mortgages, et cetera, and stay in their homes. So we're hoping as we keep getting more and more crunched, that there's some pathway that makes sense.
But there is no path at this particular.
So I know that
time.
they had like 5 pilot areas that they did around the city.
Mhm.
I don't know. It just came up recently and somebody was like, I really need, like, maybe there's been progress, but I apologize. I don't know beyond that right now. Yeah,
From what I was reading, there was not enough data, and it is very costly.
yeah,
And the well, there's no ordinance, they're still the city trying to tweak the program, whatever that means. I don't
yeah.
know.
And I mean, I know that lessons have certainly been learned with this in terms of how hard it is to make these things comply. I was stunned when I was hearing these stories from architects, but, so yeah, I don't, I'm hoping that that information is being distilled in a way that will make this easier.
I just have a comment. The workers' cottages they're like ADUs already. The frame is there. They just need help.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And if you've got multi-story ones too, you could convert some of those and create extra units if they weren't already separated out too.
Everything costly. Yeah, costly.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So anyway, we're 3 sisters. And you brought up community and these homes, which are very sturdy
Uh-huh.
and have
They
been
are
around
sturdy.
forever. We have a home that we grew up in that's well over 100 years old.
Mhm.
And anyway, we want to age in place
Mhm.
because we want to be not too far from Rush,
Right.
where we were born, and we
Yeah.
will probably die.
Real Chicago.
Oh, yeah, in this area, here, Taylor Street.
Yes.
So it's right next door. We're very interested in something like that.
Mhm.
And anyway, that's why we came here today. So we need to learn more.
Yeah, and we used to do talks. We had a couple of really great seminars
Mhm.
that an architect used to give about aging in place, based on like the universal code, not just like ADA stuff. And it was really thoughtful. Unfortunately, she's retired and was like no longer doing it. And it was like, oh, we want to find somebody else who can give a really great talk about that, because we have so many members too who are seniors or who have parents who might come to live with them, or who just want to get ahead of it. Little things like the threshold of your doorway,
So
and how that can be a very, like just there's so many things, counter heights and depths, and it's so super important and interesting stuff. So we have a lot of stuff specifically for seniors, but I would really like to see us pull that particular webinar back as well. So thank you for the reminder on that, because it's been on the list for a bit. But yeah, there's a lot that can be done, and better to do it now.
Well, we have been talking to architects, and
Okay.
there's one that we really like, but his number is $1 million. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what you're trying to do, but
Not
not
need a lot of
really
goals,
that, but we're trying to go
exercise,
up.
but yeah,
And even going up and then making an area for an ADU in the future, we're looking at $1 million. That's not even a tear down.
yeah,
That's just
right.
a renovation.
This architect wants it to be a tear down. He
Yeah.
sees no value
It's
in
easier. Yeah.
keeping it.
Well, it's easier for them to sort of just wipe
Preserving.
the slate clean and give us
Yeah,
a lot of
and
time.
he talks about future value. If you're gonna spend money on this, it's like, look at us. We're not getting younger here. Future value, how much is now and living in a decent place,
But the
Yeah.
financing is a big part of it, because
Yeah.
the financial institutions, if you want to expand and improve your property, and you want to keep it the footprint, you're saying, well, you're not gonna get the value back, we're not gonna invest in that same footprint. We want you to expand, or, they want to get their money back. too, because you'll never get your money back. You don't care, because you're gonna die, We just want to roll the rush, and
Yeah,
we go.
go to Rush and then
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
It'd be nice and then go right to the home.
But
As
so
my
I
dad
think
said.
financial institutions are also an issue for
Oh,
us,
for
the
sure.
small
Moving
borrowers,
forward,
and
yeah,
improving our
exactly.
property. Because they seemed to me that they were pushing for, you know, not in some portion of the house
For the whole house.
yeah, or, you know, just expanding the footprint. Yeah, what-
Oh, I'm not, I don't know if people have been trying to put solar panels.
Yeah, that's a thing. We've run into a lot of roadblocks, with solar panels. We had some, you know, two companies and then one company that we were sort of working with, trying to work on installations and facilitating that for people. It seems to not work well in this state so far. And I don't have the latest. Lee and I were just talking about that before we did the talk today. How we need to figure out what is going on at this point with that. But Illinois Solar for All has largely been Illinois Solar for very few. So we're trying to, you know, see what's going on with that.
Very expensive.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be, you know, like, there should have been paths and it's just not quite worked out. Seems like there's an overwhelm and a tremendous amount of paperwork and various things that are creating these roadblocks. So good question. Sorry that we can't answer it.
I think they might come up, I already, you know, read about some new, solar panel that will really be so easy and also very highly effective than the one that they have been. So,
That'd be great,
Hopefully
yeah,
that
especially with
will-
electrification work that's, you know, trying to happen, and the city's got a program for that as well, and having that to supplement, you know, and offset some of your electric bill would be really important. So we're hoping that those kinks are worked out, whatever exactly they are. But yeah, and with new technology, maybe, you know, we'll get lucky. They didn't actually talk about that at the conference we were at either, really.
Yeah.
Just, telling maybe, so.
I'm just sort of curious, if 25 years ago, the bungalow was not really, and the name wasn't out there much before the organization started kind of promoting bungalows. Do you think it's changed the affordability of bungalows by making them into a desirable thing with a name?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, again, we're talking different neighborhoods, very different values. And I will say that while having historic districts can, you know, there's a perception that it's going to make everything unaffordable, and you have these, you know, we only have National Register districts, so there's not really any, you can do whatever you want if you live in a house and it's a contributing National Register property. You might not be eligible for tax credit if you monkey with it too much, or it's been monkeyed with too much, but there's no one's gonna, you know, come and take you to jail if you change your windows out or something. So it hasn't, I think it's, you know, potentially served to stabilize housing values more than anything. You know, they're not being demolished at the rate that they were, which is why we, you know, came to be in the first place. But I hesitate to say that we're part of a, you know, focusing on a particular building type has been a problem in terms of gentrification. I think that's a larger issue that's just more about proximity to amenities and the north side specifically, you know, not only north side, but largely. So I don't know. I think it's kind of impossible to calculate that, I guess, but I think if anything, we've just helped make them a little more desirable. They're still being monkeyed with and doubled in size, and, you know, these things are happening, but it seems just like all the houses in the neighborhood are, you know, if there's whatever's there.
Well, you're helping preserve them
Right.
and the
Yeah.
historic character of the region. too.
Yeah, and again, if it was torn down, what's gonna be built there? It's gonna be more expensive. So, so yeah. We don't really have fields in that regard at this point with anything that we've seen, but yeah, I hear you. And it's a legit question. I mean, some of those mid-century homes, you feel like they're so super sexy, in some regards, but even that, I don't know, I just feel like in Chicago, it's more neighborhood based than anything else, you know, so. Yeah.
So we're about 10 minutes over.
Yeah.
So if there's any other questions, maybe you guys can stay a bit and answer any. But thank you everyone for coming. We have